On the previous episode of Psychic Garage, I bought a low-mileage 1966 Valiant. I did some work on the brakes, including a master cylinder rebuild. The carburetor, I had to take it apart and give it a good cleaning, did an oil change, and I managed to get it running and driving so nice. But there was more work to be done. The fuel tank was not salvageable, so I had to buy and install a new one. The fuel tank fit real nice. I was really happy with that. Next, I tore the whole heating system out of the car. The heater core was leaking. I bought a brand new one. The new one is on the right, the old one is on the left, and you can see for yourselves that the pipes did not match between the new and the old. So I had to get a radiator shop to fix that for me. Before I reassembled it, I thoroughly cleaned all the parts with bleach and water. There were dead mice in that heater. Yes, it was really gross. But I cleaned it all up, and I used weather stripping just from the hardware store to replace the factory stuff that was no good. And it sealed up really well. Installation was relatively straightforward, although I had to do it about 3 times for various reasons. And most of it is held up with just these 4 bolts around the heater motor, kind of surprising. One cosmetic fix I made on the interior was the vinyl on the door panels had separated from the backing. So I stretched it, and I did use a heat gun to warm it up. And using heavy-duty paper clips and contact cement, I stretched it back out, clipped it into place, and glued it with the contact cement, and it worked really well. It held up for months. One tune-up procedure I performed was a valve adjustment, and on this engine you have to do it while the engine is running. I've never done one of these before. And the trick is to get the engine to idle as slow as possible for 2 reasons. 1, so the oil isn't splashing all over, and 2, so that your teeth aren't being rattled as much when you're putting the wrench on the adjuster. So I loosened all of the adjusters first, then I made the adjustments using a feeler gauge and a wrench. It was surprisingly easier than I thought it was going to be. I always heard horror stories about doing this and how difficult it is, but it was actually pretty straightforward. The trick was to get the engine idling really, really slow. The more valves I adjusted, the quieter the engine sounded. Now, just so you can hear the difference, we're going to jump back to when I started adjusting the valves. Listen to the difference. And now we'll jump back to when I was finished. So much quieter. Once the engine was buttoned up again, I fired it up, and I was pleasantly surprised with the great throttle response. It was even better than before. Just finished that valve adjustment. See how this runs. Take it for a little drive. little better. I'm impressed. Oh yeah. That's a lot more gem than it had. By far. Nothing wrong with that. Probably its first valve adjustment ever. Gotta watch for pedestrians. Ever so slight exhaust leak. Very tiny. But I don't care. This car runs like a Swiss watch now. Oh yeah, even at low RPM, it doesn't jerk and buck, and so much nicer.
Colorado Avalanche. They're shoveled it in, but he was beyond center, and that'll be an icing call. 1-0 Edmonton.
Yeah!
Again, McDavid 19 seconds in, and the Oilers, well, historically in game 2 of the best of 5, they won all but one of them, and that was their first appearance when they were swept in 19.
I have no complaints about this engine. The only thing left to do is change the PCV valve. I think that'll get rid of that popping in the exhaust. But that runs great. And it's so much quieter. Had a lot of ticking before. Now you can't hear it. So quiet. You just barely hear any ticking. All right, I've had this Valiant now for probably 3 weeks, and I've been working on it a lot. And I'm sorry I didn't document a lot of it on film. Now, what have I done? New tires all the way around. Well, good used ones. I put in a tachometer so I could see how the engine is revving on the highway here. Notice the speedometer needle is stuck. As it turns out, the speedometer is pretty much useless. The needle had fallen off. So, and I noticed that when I first drove it, the needle didn't move, but the odometer was turning. So I took the instrument cluster apart, and the needle was laying in there, but it was all twisted in a circle. I don't understand why. So I straightened it out and I put it back on, but the needle doesn't like to return to 0. So it's in the end it's totally inaccurate. So we have to use the GPS, which is fine. I don't mind that. But at least the odometer still works. We're getting accurate mileage counts. I replaced the headlight switch. The original one worked, but when you went to rotate it to dim and brighten the instrumentation, it didn't sound or feel right at all. So anyways, I replaced that. I got the wipers working properly. They now park at the bottom of the windshield. They were sitting high before, and now they park. What else? I got the radio working. All I had to do was buy an antenna for it. So got an antenna outside. What else? Got the dome light working. What was wrong was this pin switch here was frozen. So now when the door closes, it shuts the light off and turns the light on. We'll have a look under the hood. Before we get under the hood, I did put a new mirror on because it didn't have one at all. Now, okay, I've done a fair bit of work under here. The water pump just failed the other day, so I changed that, and it had already been changed. It wasn't the original one, so I don't know, but the car did sit for a long time, so I'm not surprised that that replacement one failed. I put new spark plugs in. The distributor cap and the rotor are already brand new, so I left them in there. I had to take the fuel pump out. There was oil leaking around where it meets the engine block, so I put a new gasket in there. You can see that green in there, that's the new gasket. What else? Heater core, so you can't see it because it's inside the car. This is the heater fan motor. So you take out these 4 bolts and the whole heating system falls down inside of the car. That's the whole thing. That's all that's holding the whole heater in. And there's one clip on this left side. Put in a new heater core. The original heater core, I didn't even try it, to be honest, because it was already bypassed when I got the car. So it was pretty safe to assume that it was leaking. And when I did take the original heater core out, it was full of calcium and on the outside of the heater core. So it had leaked a lot. So someone had bypassed the heater core for a good reason. So now I have good heat. The fan works great. It's only got 2 speeds, low and high, which I thought was kind of funny. And obviously I did an oil change. I've actually done 2. I did one before I started the engine, and then I did another one after driving it for a while. And the car is fully licensed and insured, so I've been driving it legally. I don't like driving around with no insurance. Not a good idea. And it's running very well. So I do have a road trip to take with this car. And what's going on is I found for the Meteor, so those of you that have watched Going North, you know that the Meteor went up to Alaska and back last summer. And it was flawless. The car was fine, never had any issues, it was great. And being up in Alaska, you know, that car, the Meteor, does not have air conditioning. And we didn't think we'd ever need it. And initially we didn't. The first few days wasn't that hot. But as it turns out, Alaska had a bit of a heat wave when we were there. It was quite hot for Alaska, like 28 Celsius. And same as Dawson City. I apologize if I can't talk right. I was at a dental appointment earlier today and my mouth was really, really frozen. I'm surprised I can talk as well as I can now. My wife was laughing at me. I sounded hilarious. Anyways, that Meteor does not have air conditioning, and I found for sale in Saskatchewan a complete air conditioning system for a Mercury Meteor. And I already paid for it online, and it was at a fantastic price, but the problem is it's far. I'm not sure how many kilometers it is, but it's probably, if I was to drive straight there, it'd be about 12 hours. So I'm gonna take this car to Saskatchewan to pick up that air conditioning system for the Meteor. Eric's coming with me, and we're gonna camp 2 nights, one on the way there, one on the way back, and we're leaving in 2 days. So the only real things I have left to fix, I can't fix because I ordered parts and they won't arrive till next week. So, and that is, there's a grommet for the fuel filler neck that when I fill up the tank, it keeps gas from spilling out. Well, it does leak, the one that I have on the car right now, and the new one isn't going to arrive. It'll be basically 3 weeks in the mail almost. So I'm going to try and seal that gasket up right now. So I'll show you that. Okay, so I'm underneath the Valiant. I'm not in my garage with the hoist. I'm on a service pit, or in a service pit that was on my acreage when we bought the place. It was kind of one of my selling, or one of the selling features that really got me into this acreage. So I've used it numerous times, hundreds and hundreds of times, for oil changes, exhaust repairs, shocks, brakes, cables and stuff. And doing a quick inspection, like where is this oil leak coming from, or whatever. So I've had friends come over and use it on occasion. And I don't know what I'd do without it. If we ever moved out of this place, I would probably build another one. It's handier than the hoist. So we're using it today so I can look at this gas tank filler neck on this car, because the grommet is leaking and I want to try and seal it. So let's have a look. The fuel tank has already been replaced. I ordered that from Rock Auto, of all places. They had it. And it's a very unusual tank. It's only for 3 years on this model of vehicle. So I was happy they had it. So that's installed, it works great. The fuel sending unit. Be aware, anyone else buying brand new fuel sending units for your gas gauge, so that has the float. So the float in the sending unit goes up and down depending on the level of fuel in your tank. And all the new ones are totally inaccurate. Most of them won't come up to full on the gauge. I'm really disappointed with that. I've done probably 6 of them and they were all inaccurate. And on this car, I ended up bending the arm for the float to make it more accurate, and I also used a resistor in line. I had to get back into my computer engineering mind from over 20 years ago and figure out what size resistor I needed to get that gauge on full and to read half at the half mark and empty at the empty mark. So it's relatively accurate. So let's have a look at this grommet. So there's the filler neck there. That black ring is the grommet, and there's the tank. I don't know if I'm going to be able to get any sealant on there. I can't even get my finger around that filler hose, so I don't know. We'll see what happens. But we can also have a look underneath the car. It's in pretty good shape. I fixed one hole in the floor here. We think a window was left open and it rusted here. So that's fixed. And I sprayed it with undercoating to seal it. I might end up spraying the rest of the underside. I don't know, we'll see. There's still a bit of an oil leak here, I think. Or is that just, no, that's just left over from when it was leaking before. So there's where the fuel pump matches up to the engine, and there's no fresh oil underneath it, so that did fix that leak. This car did at one point have a lot of oil leaks. There's oil and dirt caked all around the engine, but it doesn't leak oil anymore. It's dry. So someone had fixed a leak. I bet you most of it was this fuel pump, because it would spread around this area. And I greased up all the fittings, so we should be ready for this trip. Off camera, I'm going to try and seal up that grommet. The reason I know the grommet is leaking is I went to fill the car up with gas after I put the tank in it. The tank did not come with a new grommet. You have to order it separately. It's very expensive. It's just an O-ring about this big, and it was, well, the cheapest one I found shipped to the door is like $80. That's ridiculous. I just can't believe it. Some websites wanted $130 for that grommet. It is ridiculous. Anyways, it leaked like a sieve. It was when the fuel got to the top, I could hear it pouring out. So I quickly drove home from the gas station. I'm less than a quarter mile from there. By the time I got home, it stopped. So either it leaked it all out of the top, or I don't know, maybe the O-ring swelled up. I don't know. But I'm gonna try and seal it up off camera. I did get some sealant on there. I couldn't quite get all the way around. There was a sharp screw sticking out that was digging into my finger. So it is what it is. If it leaks a little bit of gas, we'll have to live with it. You can see that gray stuff there. Now, that gray material is, I'll show you this product. MotoSeal. This is used for motorcycle and snowmobile engines, and it's the only sealant on the market that is not affected by gasoline. I haven't actually tested it by soaking it in gas, but I've done a number of snowmobile engines. When you put the engine together, you seal it up with this stuff, and snowmobile engines are a 2-stroke, so there's fuel in there all the time, and I haven't had a failure yet, so hopefully that works. If not, it's going to be a bit of a roadkill. And what else have I done? So the brakes on this car are all new all the way around, so there's nothing to fix on the brakes. The e-brake, yeah, there's nothing to fix on the brakes. The master cylinder I rebuilt, so I have total confidence in this car that it's going to make it all the way from Stony Plain to Esterhazy, Saskatchewan, where the parts for the Meteor are. Yeah. Something else that surprised me about the Valiant is the exhaust is brand new from front to back. All of it. The muffler is new. Well, at least probably in the 90s when it was last parked. And it's all in really good shape. And the tailpipe is really nice too. So, I think we are ready for the Saskatchewan road trip coming up in 2 days. All right, I am heading off to pick up it's been a while since I drove a stick. Okay, I'm heading out to pick up Eric.
Turn left on Beach Corner Road, then turn left.
Silly GPS. Gonna pick up Eric. We are heading to Saskatchewan. I've been looking forward to this for days.
Turn left on Beach Corner Road, then turn left.
So, Eric's about 10 minutes away. We'll pick him up, probably grab a drive-through coffee, and then we're on our way. Got the car packed, car's tuned up. I feel fairly confident, but time will tell. I thought I ran out of gas, but I guess it's okay. I'm gonna turn around here.
Continue 2.8 kilometers.
It is on empty,
then turn
but
left on Rosenthal Way. Continue 3 kilometers. Then take Ram on right to Highway 779.
Let's have a look. Everything seems fine. It's not out of gas, but the temperature gauge wasn't working when I left the house, but it's working now, so whatever. It's an old car. And I tell you, a temperature gauge is very important when you're on a trip like this in an old car, because you know, I want to know if it's overheating before it's too late. Anyways, going to pick up Eric. Okay, I am out of gas. I have gas. I'm gonna put it in. I'm just gonna coast off the highway here. Yep. Still going. 55 kilometers an hour, nobody around. Oh man. Well, I know when the gauge hits the empty line, that's it. Okay, I'm gonna stop here. Yep, she's out of gas. Okay, let's hope this thing starts. Stalled.